Hey guys, how is it going? So I know that Cuphead has been a relatively popular thing lately. It seems to have quite a bit of staying power. I originally was not going to talk about it to any capacity because it's not really the kind of game that I like to play in my free time. It's not really my go-to genre, so to speak. But I just kind of noticed like a weird trend with people and sort of how this is impacting the gamer culture, so to speak. I need to stop saying so to speak so much. But I'm noticing like that cultural rift between the hardcore gamers and the, everyone else. I'm noticing a lot of the people that really like it either really enjoy games that are inherently challenging, not necessarily super difficult, but just appropriately taxing. And then I'm seeing the kind of more gentle perspectives from people that like to play all kinds of games. A lot of the game reviewers out there that have been writing about Cuphead have kind of been writing some concerning things. And I mean, any of us who have been, playing games for a long time already know right from the get-go, every game reviewer that you see or hear about, everything that they say and believe in for the most part, you should take with a huge grain of salt. For example, I remember back in the day, I had always heard that Nights into Dreams was a great game, and I played it later and found out that it is. But I remember one time I read a copy of Nintendo Power that was reviewing the newest Nights into Dreams game on the Wii, and the person that they had assigned to review the game was a huge fan of the original Nights game. So when he went into this review, he was super nostalgic, and he just looked past any flaws the game had, and trust me, it had a lot of flaws. And he literally gave the game a 10 out of 10. It caused a huge uproar, and it kind of was one of the main reasons why I didn't really trust Nintendo Power anymore after that, was because it had a definite sort of loyalty to their brand, of course. Like at this point, I would honestly say that I don't trust most major publications, but I really like Silicon Era, as well as DualShockers. There's some really good ones that they just talk about games. They don't talk about the identity behind games and, how this game means a lot to me. They just go, hey, here's a game that's coming out this date and you can buy it on this console. GG, take care. But I mean, aside from journalists not always being 100% reliable and ethical, of course, as we've learned in recent years, I think more than anything, the sort of people that are really aggressively defending Cuphead and teasing everyone that either finds it too difficult or think there should be a much easier mode or that the entire game is just flawed, that it has all these issues, I think the hardcores are honestly right on this one, because Cuphead is the kind of game that's meant to make you feel like, oh, it's really unforgiving, man, this is meant to be a challenge. Like when you're playing through that game, just the normal levels, and even those kind of kick your ass if you're not really paying attention. That's how you know it's a game that wants you to really take note, open your fucking eyes, and observe what's happening and deal with it accordingly. That's not the same thing as a game, it's like Dark Souls, it's so brutal, it's gonna fucking, like with Dark Souls, after a while that became sort of their thing, was they were marketing it as like this super brutal game. If you're a masochist, you're gonna enjoy this. And I think that's sort of bred an age of reporters and to some degree gamers that think that everything that's difficult is either being inspired by Dark Souls, is derivative of Dark Souls. And obviously that's silly for a number of reasons, considering that number one, not only is Dark Souls not the hardest game in existence, but there's also a lot of other games that are much harder than it. So I'll be completely honest with you and say that when it comes to Cuphead, I am definitely a bit of a scrub. Like, I'm cognizant of the fact that this isn't always the go-to game for me, that this game wasn't made with me in mind, with my preferences and my expectations. But even that being considered, the fact that this isn't a game that I would immediately love to play and that it's not immediately like a perfect fit for my personality and temperament. The game has options and functions within it that allow you to choose to play with homing bullets, which of course is what I use because I have more issue dodging the enemies and landing on the right platform, just general platforming aspects, more than I have trouble with the actual boss. I mean, of course, that's half the trouble, is minding the environmental hazards while you're trying to focus down the boss's heart. The fact that you can choose to have a fourth heart instead of the ability to be invulnerable while dashing, that shows that, that's for a player that prefers to have more vitality and be able to soak up enough hits rather than being able to deftly dodge them when you know they're incoming. The charge attack is especially gratifying for people that are pretty skillful at the game because it really allows them to wait for the perfect moment and be building up their attack and biding their time in the meantime. And then the moment they see that perfect opportunity, they just let it all loose all at the same time. And it's also a little bit more thrill-seeking considering the fact that if you parry while you're charging up an attack, you just will lose your charge. It's also a bit of a badass flaunting sort of like, yeah, I can do this, it's fun, check this out. So I think all the people that are focusing on Cuphead saying that it's really hard, that's true. It is difficult. It is a challenging game. It's a fair game that gives you time to learn the enemy strategies, to get around some of their attacks, to know when it's coming and how to prepare and how to respond. The game is very well made in all of these regards. When I was fighting against the Queen Bee boss, she kept destroying me over and over. It was also at the end of a day when I didn't really have a very good dinner. I don't think I'd eaten for about 6 hours. So of course, as other guys tend to be, and I guess everyone else as well, whenever I I get particularly hungry for a while, I get really, really upset later if it doesn't go resolved, I don't get some food. And then I died a bunch, and it got me into this point where I was just like, this game is essentially, like I started taking it really personally. I was like, this game is fundamentally broken. Here's some things that are bad about it. And then I ate and I calmed down and I thought about it and I was like, no, the game's fair. The way that I learn isn't really like jiving well with the way this game works. So I think a lot of the people that are immediately dismissing Cuphead is just like, oh, it's trying way too hard to be challenging. It's like a try-hard game. I think those people really just need to like take a breath, step outside, and realize that the game is very passable. If Dark Side Phil can beat the game using the handicaps provided, you can beat the game using the handicaps provided. It's as simple as that. Like, one can say that Bloodborne was made with like super high difficulty and kind of separating the weak from the chaff in mind. The fact that that game has no shields. It has one shield, but it's so shitty you'll never use it. You use an attack as a defensive maneuver to parry. Like, that's really intimidating for some people. I didn't get that far in Bloodborne. I know it's a beautiful game. I know it's amazing. It has great art and music and design and, you know, the subtle weight of storytelling as is common in the Dark Souls, Blood Souls, Soulsborne, that's the term. Fucking A. Like, that game is a game I would argue is a little bit too difficult to be justifiable, and it's just kind of there for the elitists to say, yeah, I beat this game using this, and this, and I did it with my bare fist, you know, whatever the hell gets you off. If you're that masochistic and you really need to prove something by being really good at excessively difficult video games. Like, I don't judge those people. I just look at them and I say, that's cool, I like the game, it's not for me, I'm terrible at that game. And it's okay to accept that you're not skillful at something. The people who are, of course, will try to make you feel bad for it. But one could argue that's just kind of like schoolyard, playful bullying sort of aggression. I personally wouldn't make that argument, but, you know, I think it makes sense. There's a lot of banter. Like when a lot of guys call each other mean names or are just aggressive to each other in general. It's almost like a insecure way of saying, hey, you know, I care about you. You can do it, you know, kind of the opposite of what they say. Obviously not all the time, but usually when my friend will say, hey, you know, happy birthday, fuck you, I hope you die. I know that's code for like, hey dude, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I just want to say, like, I hope you're doing well. We should like reach out and catch up again sometime. It's just kind of how guys act, and I know the internet as a whole gets a lot of hate for that sort of thing, which is to a point justifiable. Sometimes people are way too hardcore online, whether they're trying to be memey or intentionally cancerous. But I think in the case of Cuphead, this is just kind of a reflection of how it's always been. People will continue to be elitist. People will constantly pick on people that are unable to take into account their own personal shortcomings, and will just immediately project that fault onto the game, which has, by the way, been meticulously throughout the course of years and years of programming and analysis and design. Like, usually when something is crafted that specifically with so much detail in mind, it's probably a safe bet to assume that you're not good at this game. Like, I'm damn good at speedrunning Final Fantasy V, but no one cares about that because it's not entertaining, it's not interesting. Like, I was actually thinking about that. There's actually a really good reason why it's better to be good at a game and to make a game that's difficult than there is to just make a game that's average enough that most people will be able to play it. Because, like, you know, you'll go on Twitch and you'll see someone that's really good at a game and they have, you know, usually tens of thousands of audience members watching them, and that's because it's genuinely a feat to be able to watch these people perform well, and maybe you'll learn something from them in the process, maybe just the way that they control the character or kind of the mental strategy they go in with. For example, in my Overwatch video, I basically just explained, here's why I don't play the game anymore, and a lot of my reasons that I listed were mostly just personal. I didn't really go over them with a fine-tooth comb. I didn't really look at all the game data. I even said in the video that I haven't played in a while, so my opinions were probably rusty and therefore not very reliable. And rightfully so. I got a lot of comments just saying, okay, good, one more Mercy main gone, and I'm like, I'm not just a Mercy main. And like, people were, you know, saying, oh, your aim is terrible, your team was carrying you. And if my first reaction was to be like, oh, fuck, these guys are assholes. But then the more I looked into it and I actually like looked at how I played and thought about it, I was like, you know, these guys are probably right to like a large degree, that like I have my own personal shortcomings and I'm not really adapting to the game. And these people, of course, were being really incendiary and terrible, but that's just kind of how they're used to talking. Like, very calmly worded sentences don't often get noticed or taken seriously. So if someone's just trying to say, you know, I really don't think this game is for you, I'm sure you are good at games, but just maybe not this one. It might actually come out as, you're useless and you may as well kill yourself because you'll never be good at any game if you're not good at this one. Like, this one's so easy. Like, you know, when Cuphead came out, everyone kind of expected that wave of like, this game is way too hard, I wish there was an easy mode. There is. And you know, you can kind of wave those people away like, all right, whatever, you're not good at the game, no one cares. But then you see all these journalists coming out, and they're trying to make really honest cases why entire portions of the game should be cut or skipped or be optional. And really it comes down to they are not the artist. They are not the creator of the game. They are just someone who, like myself, just reviews entertainment. And we're not really in any position to actually genuinely propose that they change this game. Sometimes it's like, oh, you know, it'd be nice to see this change. Or like, I didn't really like this. That's different. But when you go, I think that this game should have this in order for it to be better. I've decided that. It's like, well, who are you? James McFrankenfuck with your turtle glasses and your necktie. Fuck you. You don't know me. You're just some douchebag living in Seattle sipping on lattes and acting like, no. See, the thing is, I like video games more than you. Like, the way that I love video games transcends most of society. Like, those are usually a lot of the people that are writing about these games. Like, they do believe it's art, but they believe that it's art a little too much. It's like sometimes, you know, sometimes it's just a South Park game trying to be as offensive as possible, and it's not necessarily always like speaking to some sort of culture or society. But anyway, I figure Cuphead is a little bit on the way out in terms of, you know, massive hype and people talking about it. I think it's just, from now on, it's going to be one of those games where it will be remembered fondly as essentially a masterpiece of animation and of, you know, game mechanics and teaching the player, because it really is good. It's solid on all those fronts. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to get a video out on Cuphead before it felt completely irrelevant and faded into obscurity. Not likely, never into obscurity, of course. So I hope you guys liked watching. I kind of want to know if you guys have any specific questions. Do you guys sort of like these videos where I just sort of talk for a little while about something that's on my mind and I can get it out quicker because I don't really need to meticulously edit it? Because I still want to do videos that are edited. They're just lately, I haven't had as much time. So they've kind of gone to the back burner while I've been doing these more sort of like one-note videos. But let me know what you think and maybe leave a few questions about what I think of other franchises that might lead me to make more videos of that and make more fucking content. I don't really have anything else to say, so I'm just gonna abruptly end the video right here.